My name is Nicholas Hofeldt. I'm the Senior Reliability Engineer at Itafos Conda, located in Soda Springs, Idaho. I was a primary team member involved with the implementation of asset care to support the long-term sustainability of our fertilizer manufacturing facility. Our facility is a vertically integrated phosphate fertilizer business that produces a wide variety of products, including superphosphoric acid, monoammonium phosphate, and various other specialty fertilizer products for the North American market. Our site has a long history. It was actually built on a 250-acre parcel of farmland in 1964, and it's been in near continuous operation ever since. Our site, along with its 54-year operating history at the time, was acquired by Itafos in January of 2018. Currently, we use Bentley's APM AssetWise software to develop, deploy, and maintain our tablet-based asset care program for our site. So today, I'm going to kind of share our journey with you and show you how we use this asset care software to support our safety, process safety, environmental stewardship, and reliability goals. That was last week. So as you can imagine, a site with a 54-year operating history has a lot of competing priorities, ideas, and methods for care of the assets and collection of maintenance and reliability data. This data, if collected at all prior to the implementation of the AssetWise software, was collected in electronic spreadsheets, other electronic formats, or paper check sheets that were frequently lost, not attached to work orders, and were stored both on and off the site. This data is needed to be collected so that for things like insurance and safety audits and recertification of our VPP star status, we have to gather this information to provide examples of performing required checks and completing follow-up on actionable items. In the small mountain community where our site is located, wow, I didn't do that. Well, in any case, in the small mountain community where our site is located, sustainability means more than just hitting production numbers. It means good paying jobs. It means keeping people safe, protecting the environment, and being a good neighbor and being involved in the local communities where we live, work, and do business in. Our scope of the project was to develop a continuous improvement process that would develop asset care plans that would provide needed reliability and maintenance data, was easily accessible, quick to deploy, and would be consistent across all areas in our plant. There we go. With over 9,000 active maintainable assets, we recognize that our site's long-term sustainability was intimately linked with our ability to effectively and efficiently maintain these assets. So consequently, we identified asset care as a key pillar in our reliability program. But what would a real asset care program look like, and how were we going to get there? So our strategy to implement the program was essentially just to hit the ground running. We wanted a rapid implementation. We wanted to avoid analysis paralysis. And we wanted to have the maximum impact to the site. In addition, we wanted to build on our history because you can't just scrap 54 years of operating knowledge on day one. So it was the recognition that this wasn't just an asset care program, but it was a culture change, and we had to have everybody on board. So we took a ground-up approach. We targeted the tasks of our operators and maintainers. We didn't start from scratch, but we had to ask ourselves some questions about where we were and how we had gotten there. What assets were we looking at? Who was looking at them? What's the frequency we're looking at them? And are we looking at the right things at the right time? By reviewing our current methods, we gave ourselves an opportunity to ask these questions, and we made an impact immediately as we transitioned our paper check sheets to electronic tablet-based check sheets. By using customizable templates, we developed a consistent framework for the creation of these routes, and ensuring that similar pieces of equipment were being looked at the same way all the way across our site. The indicators developed for these check sheets would now prompt action from our collectors and maintainers when put into an alarm state. And this gives some insight into what normal should look like versus what we were seeing. And this was something that your previous collection methods lacked. It wasn't perfect, but our strategy allowed for that. Analysis and optimization would be our keys to continuous improvement. So, what did we analyze? There we go. All right. Having a little trouble there with the computer. We needed to spend our time efficiently, so our first task was to identify high critical assets, including safety critical assets, so that we could provide direction for the development and optimization of our asset care plans. By spending the time to perform asset prioritization analysis, we were able to generate a roadmap that would direct further improvements to our reliability program. And now with a list of prioritized assets and assets that now had electronic check sheets in hand, we could focus on assets that either had no asset care plans in place or were high critical or safety critical to the site. We currently continue to improve our asset care plans through a combination of maintenance task analysis and current practice reviews, and this helps us identify our assets' current operating context, reasonably likely functional failures, and their potential effects. Using AssetWise, we fully documented this information into a single location that's accessible to all stakeholders. And this understanding of these three key items is a key requirement to develop appropriate asset care plans to monitor for and prevent functional failures of our assets. So now that we've set up basic operator and maintainer routes, how did we leverage that information to produce meaningful tasks that would assist us on our quest for sustainability? As our operators and maintainers perform their daily routes, they select indicator states for each collection point. If a defect is observed, various actions could be recommended and taken based on the severity of the defect. Additionally, if a defect was found, we set up immediate email notifications so that we could send it out to the people who need to know about it without imposing on our operator or maintainers daily responsibilities. So now it became easy to monitor our assets for alarms, follow-up, and to capture remaining maintenance history. We also connected this system to our CMMS, Computerized Maintenance Management System, to capture those defects and seamlessly integrated it into our work management process. That way we get the necessary information to the shop floor so that required maintenance can be planned, scheduled, and completed before functional failure occurs. And this ease of access and availability of data led us to change this from just a purely asset performance management tool to leveraging the capabilities of the system to make it easier to comply with site requirements for PHA-identified safety critical systems and devices, with regulatory compliance, and even to gather temporary information when remote monitoring or data logging was not feasible or possible while we troubleshooted process or equipment issues. And in these types of situations, the flexibility to do that became critical. So how did we do? So to develop effective asset management strategies, we developed a better understanding of our assets by documenting the current operating context, using various reliability studies to optimize our asset care plans, creating a consistent framework for monitoring and maintaining our assets, and we've developed indicator and alarm states to identify potential issues and correct them before they become functional failures. To date, we've analyzed and ensured that over 95% of our highest criticality assets have implemented asset care plans in place. Additionally, we leverage the capabilities of the software to provide critical information to various groups in the plant in a much more efficient manner by providing our immediate email notifications to individuals or departments on readings taken, monitoring equipment for abnormalities and maintenance history, and we put that in a single digital environment, and we provide quick and easy access to reports and completed routes. And by doing this, we've reduced the time frame for collecting data for review and maintenance information from potentially days to just minutes. And finally, the connection to our CMMS prevents us from having to log into a separate system to initiate action against these abnormalities that are found. This transfers into our work management system in less than a minute, and it actually ends up saving about 4 minutes of time per issue identified to generate a work request and get it into the right hands. So what I want to, 98% check sheet completion. We have 220 active APM users with about 450 checks per week, resulting in 23,000 annual checks that now have digital verification. So some tips and tricks for implementing a digital asset care solution from us. And these are our experiences, yours may differ. Number 10, if you're looking for tips and tricks to implement a digital asset care solution, you probably already have management approval. But what we're actually talking about here is management understanding. Not everyone has to be an asset care specialist, reliability engineer, or even understand what IT, OT, IIoT, big data analytics, all of this stuff that you guys are here for, they don't necessarily have to understand that. But some basic knowledge and terminology understanding goes a long way to get the support and the horsepower that you need to implement this type of program. I was fortunate because I have a site director who understands what a PF curve is and will ask questions about operating context and functional failures. Additionally, I have a maintenance manager who understands reliability, and that helps a bunch to be able to explain the difficulties and goals with this type of program. So if you don't have those two guys, spend a little bit of time, distill some basic terminology and knowledge, and present it to your leadership before launch. Number 9, you have to sell the program, you have to be excited, and you have to be positive. This is really important because you're implementing something that is part of a culture change. It takes time and patience. You will get frustrated, and things may take an exorbitant amount of time sometimes, but you have to remain consistently positive. It's going to be different than what we've always done before, and the biggest question is going to be why. So sell the information to the guys on the ground and sell them the benefits of using the program, the simplification, efficiency, and the promotion of ownership. This was our tactic, starting with the boots on the ground, the tasks of our operators and maintainers. Our equipment operators are around or look at almost every single piece of equipment every day. So that represents a lot of eyes and ears that our reliability and maintenance teams rely on to give them a heads up on issues. So they're probably already performing some checks, either by design or because they're good operators. And this leads us to using what you have. You don't have to start from scratch. Find out what checks your guys are doing. If they're anything like us, they're using a Word document, an Excel spreadsheet, or a paper check sheet somewhere in their control room to do their daily checks. The other possibility is that it's tribal knowledge, and without being documented, it'll eventually get lost. So this is where your review of your indicators and states starts. You can have those good conversations with your operators and record that information so it isn't lost. And number 6, this ties in with number 7. Measure the right things. So we still have to measure the right things. This is where the optimization of your routes start. Look for things that don't need to be checked, checks that don't bring value, or when asked, why are we looking at this, there isn't a clear answer other than we've always looked at this. And you want to migrate towards things that there are clear failure modes. And number 5, tie the checks to actionable acknowledgements. If we're looking at something, we should know what good and bad is. If we don't have clear criteria or something that's actionable, we really need to question if it's the right thing. See number 6. Get operations and maintenance involved, know the importance of your checks and measurements, and this is where your states and alarms now come into play. Set your alarms, work with your process group and your operations to find out what normal is, and then determine when maintenance starts to get nervous or get clear guidelines from a manufacturer. Ask operations if you're at a high or a low alarm state, what do you do? And then establish clear criteria on what to do based on the measurements that we do take. Number 4, at the development stage of your program, we say have an implementer. Your implementer will sit down with your operations maintenance groups and start to develop your asset care plans. So we quickly identified that just adding this task onto the responsibilities of a single person was a poor strategy. Our implementer was invaluable in gathering up check sheets from each area and identifying non-documented checks, developing training, and incorporating feedback from operators and maintainers into the development of the routes. Additionally, at the start, there was a lot of troubleshooting, QA testing, integration testing, and conversations with our provider that required a lot of time and effort, and that was all taken care of by our implementer. All right, number 3, be friends with your IT group and your provider. One quick way to lose credibility is when a piece of software or hardware doesn't work. Your IT group is your best friend at this point. Thank you. Involve them early, give them time to get their hands on the software, on the program, on the hardware, and get their commitment in resolving issues quickly. When you have people collecting data every day in a deployment in a site with multiple locations, any type of disruption to that causes a loss in credibility. Excuses for not completing the routes or putting in the actions will start to crop up. The hardware doesn't work. The routes are not on the tablets. These are things that I've heard, and sadly, they were valid in a lot of cases. In addition, with your provider, if you have trouble with the solution provider, it needs to be addressed. Their support is key, but so is urgency. Issues have to be resolved quickly. Here's also another place where your implementer is key. They can communicate and spend the required amount of time following up and resolving those issues. You have to have high expectations from your IT group and your solutions provider, and then be thankful when they resolve issues quickly. Here's the second way you lose credibility. If you find problems, you have to fix them. So you've just asked your operators and maintainers to go look at a bunch of stuff a lot closer than before. If they find an issue and report it, you need to fix it. And this goes for problems with your actual indicators or routes, or a defect that's identified during a collection route. This means that if stuff was put into a work order from a collection route, or an indicator or state doesn't make sense or is wrong, you have to strive to correct it before the next time the route is taken, if at all possible. You're trying to build confidence in a system that we're using, and we're using the system to solve problems. And if we leave an indicator in an alarm state until it fails, tells the guys at your plant that this isn't anything different than anything that's come before. So in order to succeed, we have to do better. And the last one, you have to be available. You have to communicate and respond to issues quickly, and be willing to go the extra mile to instruct people on how to do things. Walk them through troubleshooting, log into their system if you're able to do that, and walk them through their issue. Go to the morning pre-shifts, talk through common issues, solicit feedback, and ask for their help. Be willing to explain the reason we're moving in the direction that we are, and share your successes with them. It goes a long way to take a phone call, walk somebody through an issue, and then thank them for taking the time to get that issue resolved. So for this project, we accomplished a fusion of both historical learnings and industry-leading best practices in the care of our assets. Even with the high complexity of our assets, through changes, additions, modifications, and upgrades, we're continuing to develop the consistency and care of our assets in a real and practical way, and it's enabling our site to operate in a more and more sustainable manner. We've leveraged this consistent framework to integrate our people, our processes, and our reliability analysis to improve the longevity of our plant, maintain our freedom to operate, support our corporate values for stewardship of the environment, as well as sustainability for the good of our site and our community that we live and work in. And it helps support our goal of feeding the world. Thanks.